brilliant idea.
Well?
That's what we need, a brilliant idea.
Well, where are we going to get
The
that?
TV show premiered on NBC in September 1966 and was an instant hit. To the viewers, it looked genuinely innovative, a potent mix of wacky humour, crazy plots and catchy pop.
Hi, fellas. Listen, we need an idea for the show, you know. Gotta be something fast and groovy and hip and everything, you know. Can you do it?
For producers Bert Schneider and Bob Rafelson, the show reflected their own status as young mavericks on the Hollywood scene.
Bob Rafelson did come down on the set, and he was great and very, very, hyper, and, he put that energy into us, and he kept us going with that kind of idea. And Schneider was, more the money man up in the office, and he came down a few times, a good-looking, tall, 6'3", handsome man. He was like a movie star himself. I think they were very, very talented, and they were very ahead of their time to be able to think they would get away with putting a show like this on the television.
The program had a kind of slightly anti-establishment attitude about it. I felt this was an itinerant band. They were living in a funny house together, and wherever they went, there was a bit of resistance to their style, their personality, their long hair, and their aggressiveness.
Arrogant egomaniacs.
Long-haired weirdos?
Loathsome teenagers.
Delightful and well-bred.
Who wrote that?
My mother.
Let's dance on. Oh, baby, come on.
At that time, the only time you saw long-haired kids on television, they were being arrested. That was one of the reasons it was so successful. It spoke to all those kids around the country.
34-135.
Look, Mom, the Monkees have long hair and wear bell-bottoms and paisley underwear, and they're okay. They're just nice guys and helping people and stuff like that.
Doing the jerk. Oh, come on, baby. Come on, baby. Let me see how you work. Let's dance on. Oh, baby, come on.
There wasn't so much going on in terms of the plots. I don't think plots mattered on the Monkees. Davy meets girl, girlfriend's mother doesn't like Davy. Band sings a song, Davy gets back with the girl, everyone's happy, there's stars in his eyes.
Now hang on, baby. Hang on, baby. A little snoopy with you. Oh, yeah. Let's dance on.
Everything has a rhythm to it. Everything is on a beat. And it's more based on the fast advertisements you would see at the time. There was nothing else on television like the Monkees really anywhere in the world.
Midway through the Monkees' first series, millions were tuning into the show and buying their records. And life for the four unknown actors who'd walked off the street just a few months before was becoming very different.
They went from nobodies to overnight stars. They were on television every week. Their records are #1. Their merchandise is all over the place. They were unavoidable. It was white hot.
I remember we had a Christmas break, and so I had a couple of days off to do my Christmas shopping. And I got in the car, drove down to the mall, going through the sliding big doors of the mall, and I do remember this quite clearly. All of a sudden, I heard a lot of people screaming and running at me. And I thought, shit, there's a fire. And I turned around and I ran out of the building. Fire, everybody get out, there's a fire. And I ran out into the parking lot. And I turned around and I looked, and everybody kept running at me, mostly young girls. And I thought, oh my God, it's just like, wait a minute, I gotta do my shopping, and I had to leave. I was really pissed off, I had to leave. That's the first time I really got a real taste of what had happened.
The Monkees' debut album topped the American charts for 13 weeks, selling over 3 million copies. But their plans to record their own material cut no ice with Don Kirshner. Craving even greater commercial success, he already had another producer and hot young writer in his sights.
I brought in Jeff for one reason. I knew he was very close to Neil Diamond, and I had my eyes on Neil Diamond after hearing Cherry Cherry. I knew if I got a song close to that, I could have a #1 smash with the boys.
I was producing Neil Diamond, and Don asked if I would be interested in, producing the Monkees. That's pretty much of a yes.
Neil Diamond walked into my office with a guitar, and he plays me. I saw her face, and I'm a believer. You know, I don't even know if I heard the rest. I said, that's it.
I'm a Believer was the song that was chosen to be the centerpiece of the songs I was going to cut with them. And everybody seemed to think it had potential, and it was very polite and so on and so forth. Except Mike. Mike said, I'm a producer too. These words have stuck in my head all these years. I'm a producer too, and that ain't no hit.
Love is only true in fairy tales, and for someone else, but not for me.
After Last Train to Clarksville, I figured I'd walk in and they'd listen. But it got worse. Ho-hum, I'm a Believer, it's okay, not great. I'd rather do one of Mike's songs.
Then I saw her face, now I'm a believer. Not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love.
I really didn't care, because there was nowhere in the world that was not going to be their next record. They could have ranted and raved like they did. Davey and Mickey usually went along with me. Peter was on the fence, always siding with Mike.
It's fair to say from the start that Michael Nesmith and Don Kirshner came from different worlds. You know, here you have Nesmith, this Tex-Mex troubadour, and then on the other side you have Don Kirshner, a rag trade salesman dressed up as a pop merchant. And so there was a natural clash that was bound to happen.
Now I'm a believer.
Well, they were a problem for me and a pain in the neck most of the time. But it was very rewarding because I said to myself, forget about the great writers. I'm actually going to outsell the Beatles.
Kirshner got what he wanted as I'm a Believer topped the US charts, becoming the best-selling single of 1967. But with success came even greater friction as the Monkees tried to break out of their cage.
The Monkees phenomenon takes a dramatic left turn after that record. They wanted to record their own music, their hair goes wild, and their egos are exploding. So there's really two parts of the Monkees story. There's the first part of the story, which is this very manufactured phenomenon, and there's this second part of the story, which is this runaway train.
In 1967, 4 young wannabes in LA were transformed into international superstars.
I'm not your stepping stone.
They were the cast of a hit TV show, playing members of the fictional pop group, the Monkees. By now, the Monkees were outselling both the Beatles and Elvis combined. But their adoring fans were unaware they provided only the vocals on their hits. And now the band was desperate to start flexing its musical muscles.
We evolved from being, actors that played to, to a good garage band, Every time they weren't filming and they were setting the next scene, we plugged in and we were playing.
But the Monkees were still rookies when it came to performing before an audience. Now though, with fans to satisfy and money to be made, they were under pressure to go on the road and play massive stadium gigs. Finally, it seemed that the Monkees would have to stand up and be heard in front of thousands of hysterical fans.
All of a sudden, we were on the road, and we were out in front of thousands of kids screaming their heads off. They couldn't have cared less. I don't think they could even hear it. I couldn't hear it. All I heard was my voice coming off the back wall 2 seconds later. Take the last train to take the.
When you did the shows, you lived in a tunnel. You lived in the hallways, and down the hallways and into the limousine and into the backstage of the show, and then Bluey, it's all over there, and there's 18,000 screaming kids, and then back into the tunnel, and back the tunnel takes you back to your hotel room, and into the next tunnel, and the bus, and the limo, and the train, and what have you, and the plane, and that was it.
We didn't have groupies, you know. We didn't have people trying to slip into our rooms, and we weren't out there, you know. I mean, I was more interested in their mothers than I were in them, you know what I mean? I mean, I've got underwear older than most of my girlfriend's mothers, you know what I'm saying?
Once we went on the road, they couldn't control it anymore because we were there playing live in front of all these audiences. And that was a different, in a way, that was a different Monkee group.
As the band members began to forge their own identity, they became increasingly disillusioned. Their exclusion from the recording studio, except to lay down their vocals, infuriated them. And when producer Don Kirshner released the second Monkees album without their knowledge, relations hit an all-time low.
We had been on the road performing as a band, and we had learned how to do it. The second album came out, we had never heard the final album. We were on the road. Somebody went across the street and bought the album.
When that record came out, the shit hit the fan. That was it. That was the nuclear bomb going off for the phenomenon. Things were never the same.
As the storm continued to brew, it was the temperamental Texan, Mike Nesmith, who became the most vocal and volatile Monkee.
Mike was an againster all the time. He'd question the dialogue, he'd question the music, he would, you know, he wouldn't show up for some of the shows. And meanwhile, the three of us, we just, where's Mike? You know, that was, but where's Mike?
There was a lot of frustration for me. There was I wanted to get on with my life's work. I wanted to get on with doing certain things, and felt like I was lost in the Monkees. I had ideas, but I just didn't have any way to express them.
My relationship with Mike was always difficult and troubled. You've got to understand, I had a pop group that I was putting out. I had to follow with a pop record after Last Train to Clarksville. Fortunately, the second record was I'm a Believer. He wanted to do country songs.
Just a loudmouth Yankee, I went down to Mexico. I didn't have much time to spend, about a week or so.
Finally, Mike Nesmith revealed to a shocked public the band's guilty secret. That they were synthetic, man-made, and worst of all, didn't play on their records.
It was Michael who blew the whistle on us. He said, tell the people we're fake because by God we are, which was just his way of sabotaging everything. I was upset myself because I had a Pinocchio complex. I wanted to be a real life boy. I didn't want to be a puppet anymore.
Mike Nesmith's revelations caused outrage. The Monkees were vilified as a crude and cynical rip-off of the Beatles. Nothing more than a tacky pre-Fab Four.
Why this was such a controversy is hard to explain to somebody now. Now, fake is in. Fake is good, but at the time, fake was not good. In fact, fake was considered the worst thing you could be at the time.
What am I doing hanging round? I should be on that train and gone. I should be riding on that train to San Antone. What am I doing hanging round?
Fundamentally, I think the Monkees began to feel maligned by the public and in the press. It was as if somebody was saying they had no talent without Donnie Kirshner. And Donnie Kirshner, as I recall, was not a modest man. He liked taking the credit.
Bert Schneider and Bob Rafelson called me up one day and said the boys would like creative control. Having the Monkees want to write their own material, to me was absurd. That's like me wanting to go into the ring with Muhammad Ali. It was laughable to me.
I don't know what Donnie's particular path